Hello, everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Shikha, and I welcome you to my channel. As always, I'm so grateful that you're listening, subscribing, and commenting. I really appreciate the support. And in this one, I wanted to speak to you about something to do with INFJs and our decision-making process. Recently, I was speaking to a friend of mine about the fact that sometimes an idea, a good idea, will present itself to me, and I will get the idea into my psyche and I'll think about it and I'll mull over it. And by the time I'm ready to actually put that idea into practice, sometimes it's months or even years after it. And I was wondering to myself, obviously some of it has to do with the fact that I have a limited amount of time. So if I'm going to add something new to my schedule, it has to, of course, make absolute sense and it has to really fit in with my general vision for my life. Also, in terms of energy, I have a limited amount of energy. So if I'm going to add something, I have to make sure that it is absolutely necessary and it's going to cause a positive benefit. But also, it has to do a lot with trust. And I also have this thing where I don't trust all the resources that are out there about something. So if someone says, this is a great thing for you to do, you should do it, I'm not necessarily just going to take that person at face value. I'm going to do my own research. A quick example I can give you from my life is with the liver flush. When I first heard about the liver flush, and I've spoken about it in many different videos, so you can go check those other videos out. But when I first heard about it, I think it was 3 years ago. Yeah, 3 years ago. 2018-ish. I actually don't remember, but 3-ish years ago, I think. And I was working on an island down south in Thailand at the time, and they were big into detox and they were big all talking about liver flushes and things like that. And I love the idea of doing the liver flush, but I was like, I really want to do my own research. I don't think I want to figure out why exactly it's good for me and if it's even necessary for me to do it. I don't drink, I don't smoke. A lot of the food I eat is unprocessed. I rarely eat junk food, so is it not really necessary for me to do it? And so, of course, as I said, it took me, I would say, 2 years from that point to realize, okay, I actually really want to do a liver flush, but I want to read more about it, to go online and find a book about it from the person who actually came up with the idea, and then read the book, and then realize, oh my God, this is the best thing in the world, I should really do it, and then to do it right away. Right? So once I read the book and I realized, yeah, this is exactly what I need to do with myself. It's important for me to do it. It's absolutely necessary for me to do it. I instantaneously did it. So basically, I decided I was going to do it, and the next day I started the liver flush, the process of it. It takes about a week of prep work. So it's as quick as that, literally as quick as that. As soon as we kind of decide, all right, yeah, I'm in, we're in. And it's our all or nothing mentality. I've spoken many times about it before, where once we decide we're all in, we're 100% in, not only with the relationship, but with the idea, with the situation, with the job, with the house, with the whatever it might be. Once we decide we're in, that's it. We don't dilly-dally about it. But before we make that decision, before we are like, should I do it? Should I not do it? Should I move to London, or should I move to America, or should I move to Australia? Once we're in that decision phase, when we're trying to figure out all of the different options, especially if there's a lot of options to consider, and we're kind of going through analysis paralysis, the paradox of choice. If there's too many choices, it actually paralyzes an INFJ. And so it's actually better for us to have fewer choices. And so we'll sit there and we're kind of going back and forth. Should I do this or should I do that? Maybe if I did this, this would happen. If I did that, that would happen. And so we're kind of going through all the different scenarios. And sometimes, as I said, it takes us years to get to a point where we're like, yeah, you know what? I think I made a decision. I think I'm going to go for it. Again, that's a little bit of a problem for the people around the INFJ, especially if it involves other people, because, if we're kind of trying to decide if I should be in a relationship with this person, and we're kind of, looking at all the different options and all the different ideas and trying to figure out, is it a good thing or, the pros and cons list. The other person might be sitting there thinking, but this is such a good idea. We're so good in a relationship. Why are you taking so long to figure out if we should be in one? Of course we should be in one. And they're trying to convince you, and you're like, well, I still have to think about it. And of course, I always want to tell people, be patient with an INFJ. I always tell this to everyone who messages me and who wants to date an INFJ and who loves the INFJ in their life, and they really want to get with them, and they're really trying to push them into getting into a relationship with them. I'm always like, step back, don't push the INFJ. They're not going to make a decision faster just because you're pushing them. It's not going to happen. In fact, they might get annoyed and be like, I don't want to make the decision, and just rush away from you or run away from you. And so, in fact, the best thing to do is to be patient with an INFJ when they're in this mode of decision making, because no matter what you say to them in that moment of time, no matter how much you push them, no matter how much you force them, no matter how much you poke at them, they're not going to agree with you. In fact, they're more likely to disagree with you and not do the thing at all, right? When someone's really forcing me to do something, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it. Even though I know it's good for me, even though I know it could probably change my life, even though I know that it's probably the best thing I could do for myself, if someone's being really adamant that I should do it, I'm like, no, I'm not doing it, right? The decision has to come from within us. That's the autonomy part of an INFJ. If the decision doesn't come from within us, if it doesn't bubble up from that deep source within us, and we don't completely agree with it, then we'll dilly-dally over it. And then even if we make the decision out of that place of uncertainty, almost always we'll be like, well, I don't really like the decision, and we'll change our minds very quickly after. And this is one of the reasons why, a lot of times when I join a company or I join a new job and I'd be like, not that gung-ho about it, but I was like, well, I need the money, so let me just go for it. I was always indecisive about it, but I went for it because of outside pressure. And then within a year or 2 years, I would leave because I just wasn't sure about it. It wasn't like it was coming up from, the decision wasn't coming up from a deep source within it. It wasn't something that I completely agreed with every fiber of my being, right? And that's what an INFJ needs in a decision-making process. In the making of a decision, they want to make sure that all of them, all of their essence, all of the fibers of their being, every single cell of their body and their mind and their spirit agrees with that particular decision. They do not want a single part of them to disagree with it, because if it does, they're not going to go for the idea. They're going to either dilly-dally with it, not make the decision, or make the decision but then break it quite soon after, or make the decision but then be unhappy throughout it, which is a lot of what we do as well. Or make the decision but be passive aggressive about it, so try to self-sabotage it, or make mistakes so that we're fired, or do stupid things like that. And so in fact, as I said, in general, if you're an INFJ listening, or if you have an INFJ in your life, first of all, just relax about the decision-making process. It is sometimes a long process for us, but doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. In fact, a lot of times once we end up making a decision using that long process of ours, using our introverted intuition, taking our time with it, we'll stick with that decision forever. Once I made a decision that I was going to move to Chiang Mai from that fiber of my being, it's a decision that stuck with me. I never doubted it. I would come back home and visit, but I knew in the essence of my essence, and I still know, that it's the best place for me to be in on a regular basis, right? It's one of those places that is, I would call my second home or my first home, depending on what's my first home, right? Either Toronto or Chiang Mai. Definitely both of those places are very close to my heart. So in general, as I said, take your time making a decision. Don't worry about it too much. Don't worry about if you're taking longer than other people. I think that's what we do as INFJs, that we let other people's ferocity or their velocity affect us. Some people make decisions faster. Some people go for it. Some people don't. Some people like us take longer. Some people like us take longer, and then once when we make the decision, we're just gung-ho about it. We'll just be so obsessed with it that no one can shake our attitude on it, right? Recently, I shared with the INFJ group that I have on Facebook. If you haven't already joined it, I do recommend you join it. Such an amazing bunch of people in there. The link is in the description below. But I posted in the group that I'm looking for guest posts on my blog, themillionairehippie.com, and if anyone's interested, they're more than welcome to submit ideas. And it was kind of fascinating because, of course, no one submitted an idea. And what, in fact, I had to do was I had to go out and poke at certain INFJs and say, hey, I think you're a great writer. How about, you submit an idea? I think it would be great if you wrote something for me. Now, of course, again, it's not that I'm trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. Of course, if they don't want to, that's fine. But a lot of INFJs have this dream of writing, but they don't write because it takes them so long to actually even come to the conclusion that they want to write. But once they decide, just like once I decided, once we decide, that's it. Just no holds barred, right? We just go for it as if that's the only thing in the world, right? Once I decided I was going to be a writer, that's it. Nothing could stop me. No one could get in my way. That was it. I was going to go for it, and I'm going to go for it until I die, basically. And so that's what my friend, my INFJ friend said as well. I'm like, yeah, a lot of people haven't said anything, but I'm just going to give them their time. And she's like, yeah, you know what? Once they take the time that's necessary, they're probably mulling over it in their head. The seed has been planted, so, their subconscious is working on it. And all of a sudden, they'll come to a conclusion that, yes, I want to write. And probably within an hour or two, she said, they'll probably have a written post for you, right? And so it's that quick. It's literally as a snap of a finger. We decide, and that's it. We're in. And we're in as all in could be. Like no one could be more in than us once we decide that we're in something. And so that's the obsessive part of us, obviously. That's when we're like, all right, I'm going for it, and I'm going to go for it as 100%, 1,000% that I could, right? But again, it needs a time. And so if you're dating an INFJ, just give them the time to decide. I know it's probably a little bit annoying to you, and you're probably a little bit impatient with them. Just try not to be that way, and try not to push them. Try not to make them make a decision faster than they could. Just let them make it on their own, and you'll notice that once they do, then they're going to be all in, and that's all you want, is that 100% goal of theirs. I hope this makes sense. I hope I was able to explain myself to you. If you have any questions, do message me or comment below, and I shall do a follow-up video. I'd love to hear some of the things that you went all in, some decisions that you went all in for, our all or nothing mentality. And I would love to hear from you. Any stories that you want to share with me, I'm always happy to hear your stories. Again, thank you so much, and I shall see you the next time around. Bye for now.